retail was very good to me, and it took me from kind of a rebellious wild child, a little bit of a rule breaker, to somebody who asked a lot of questions. Why? How? I don't get it. Explain it to me. Make it make sense. I've been that guy since I was a young kid. I was ADHD before it had a title.
Welcome to the Mark of Men. Through conversations about highs, lows, and everything in between, you'll learn about each guest. But more than anything, you'll learn about yourself or the men in your life. Today's marksman is Brandon Miller, owner of American Top Team Portland and mentor to many. We discuss the path Brandon charted through retail and the lessons he learned along the way. This is part one of a two-part conversation. Thank you for listening to the show. I'm Michael Marks, and this is my mark on the world of men. Welcome to the show, bro.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a great opportunity. I enjoy talking to you all the time, and you got a beautiful place here. You got a great setup, so I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, man. It's one of the things about putting this show together was having the opportunity to talk to different meaningful dudes, right? Guys that have lived interesting lives, got good character, and just kind of prying into the things that kind of made them who they are. And one of the things about you is the last episode I released, we had Fabiano on, and Fabiano is one half of the ownership of American Top Team, and you are the other owner. And I know a lot of the guys find you super interesting, great personality to have around the gym, but an immense amount of responsibility that you also get to enjoy on our behalf without us knowing any of it. So welcome to the show, Brandon.
Well, thank you. It's great to have you. Yeah. Great to have me here.
So, you because you're an entrepreneur now, but how did things start off? Were you always this industrious when it came to doing things when you were young?
No. I was a wild child, certainly. I went to Milwaukee High School just down the road. I was born and raised here, and graduated from Milwaukee High School, went to Harvard on the Hill, as we called it, which is Clackamas Community College. Played sports my whole life, and was a good athlete. And late in high school, my dreams were shattered by not being able to make it to pro baseball. I stopped growing, and it was like there wasn't a huge need for 5'10" center fielders with a great arm and an attitude.
Okay.
So, I worked at you're from California?
Yeah.
So you remember the company Good Guys?
Yeah.
So Good Guys was over on 82nd and Sunnyside, and it was like the coolest place to me. So they had all the electronics, car stereo, big screen TVs, high-end audio. So around here we had Magnolia Hi-Fi, we had Good Guys, and then we had Circuit City. So, I graduated high school in 1998. So that was kind of the peak of audio and video really merging right before high definition came out. So that was my job I got towards the end of high school. And that really helped launch my career for many things that I do today. And took over my athletic interest and competitive spirit to be really good in retail, because retail sales back then, especially in the commission environment and some of those early days, once I jumped over to Best Buy, when they came into town, everything's measured. There's a metric for everything. So the competitive nature you have in sports, you can transition into retail. So a lot of guys end up getting into sales even professional athletes, once they get out of sports, they end up in some sort of a sales job because it's very metric, measured oriented. And so it fills a lot of that void.
Which is interesting because I worked for Sears for a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That athletic mindset the athlete's mindset, because you could tell if you're winning or not. And
yeah, there's a scoreboard for everything.
So you started Good Guys in high school.
I did. I was 17 years old, and they hired me in the warehouse.
Okay. And so you started in the warehouse. How long did it take you to get onto the sales floor?
So I worked there 6 months, and one of the car installers had called in sick, and the store manager comes back and says, on a Saturday, he's busy, and he says, Brandon, you know how to turn a screwdriver? And I said, yeah. He goes, great, you're installing today. And I was like, big-eyed, 17 years old. I have not installed car stereos. I've pulled apart some of my crappy cars and worked on them here and there. But I by no means was a professional installer that somebody was going to pay this service for.
Right.
And so I went back there. I already knew the guys a little bit from just being there 6 months. And I just jumped right in and luckily didn't break anything and asked those guys a lot of questions every day. And he ended up firing the guy for poor attendance and put me right into the job. And so by my senior year, I was a full-time installer, and I went to school every other day for an hour and a half my senior year.
Oh, okay.
So I was working full-time from 17 on.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, that's a lot more than most.
And it was commission, so I didn't work 40 hours a week. I worked 60 hours a week.
Okay.
So at
you're
18 years old, I was already off and running with my career, if you will. It's not like I had this dream or anything of being in retail, but I was instantly already, motivated to make money and be successful. And I didn't really enjoy school. Once I was done with sports, I was just trying to graduate and get through school and move on to the next phase of my career.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense to me, because sometimes, schools, it's pushed on everyone, but it's not, it's not the path. It's not the path for everyone. And to find it early, to find like, hey, I'm on this grind, I'm making this money right away is actually, it's really empowering for a young man, especially too. So when, from Good Guys, when did you eventually graduate out of there and make a move to, was it Best Buy right after?
Yep. So in high school, my mom had she had moved to Wisconsin. And in Wisconsin, she was back in Madison, Wisconsin, where my sister ended up going to college to she became a Wisconsin Badger. And I'm a lifelong Oregon Duck fan. So she ended up actually transferring there halfway through her college. So she made up for it.
Point this down just a smidgen. Let's get it tilted. There we go.
So Best Buy was very big in the Midwest, and because of the way towns are set up back there in Wisconsin, some of the other Midwest, people would drive in, and these were locations at malls. So humongous malls back in the 90s. People drive in, they spend the whole day doing all their shopping, and this is when computers were $3,000. And I walked into this 40,000 square foot superstore at 15 years old the first time I went into a Best Buy, and I was just like, wow,
same.
This place has everything. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And so I was it was 1997 when I was working at Good Guys. So I was there for 3 years, a little over 3 years. And Best Buy came into town in about March of 2000. And they went out and they started recruiting local talent. And so they found me and recruited me and interviewed me, and they brought me over to be their car install supervisor and launch their base. So we helped build the store. I hired my staff. I went out and hired my staff and then trained them. And, at 20 years old, I was the youngest supervisor in the market. So I worked at Best Buy for just under 10 years, from 20 to just right before I turned 30.
Okay.
And I worked my way up from a car install supervisor running a shop to then I became a assistant manager, a sales manager, a store manager, then a district manager. So by 25 years old, I was a district manager, and I helped launch the Geek Squad for the company. So, 25, I was flying along around the whole country working with people at corporate. They're based out of Minnesota.
Okay.
So, I was flying back and forth, getting licensing going, rolling out SOPs, putting their process together, developing job descriptions. And then Magnolia, which is a local dominant brand here, Best Buy bought them to kind of help with that merger and some of their install division. And then as well, with all their higher end electronic relationships and contracts they had. So I helped with that piece. And then I was there until 2009 when the market really went.
Yeah. That's when I graduated college.
That's a good time to come out of college.
Oh man. Yeah, I was literally crucified right after, man. I was looking for work. I ended up heading down to Houston. So I got my degree at Portland State. Graduated 2009, 2010, actually right in 2010, and then there was no work.
Oh yeah.
It was absolutely brutal.
Even when retailers aren't hiring.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
tough.
Yeah, because no one was hiring.
Yeah.
Absolutely no one. And really what's cool is that so I graduated high school in 2003, so I'm not as super duper far behind you. But when you were doing car installations, that was, it doesn't give it the weight that it really has, because back then, the car stereo was like a status symbol.
Yeah.
It really, really was.
It's what shoes are today, in my opinion.
Yeah. It was a big deal. So for you to get your, just land in it and then work it and then run a department in it, what are some of the things you learned as you moved through the different levels of your career?
It's a good question. Retail was very good to me, and it took me from kind of a rebellious wild child, a little bit of a rule breaker, to somebody who asked a lot of questions. Why? How? I don't get it. Explain it to me. Make it make sense. I've been that guy since I was a young kid, I was ADHD before it had a title. The parents were cutting sugar off by noon every day, hey, you got to calm down. Red Bull drinks a cup of me every day when it wakes up. And so I got a boss. I had a boss that was very influential to me at Good Guys. He was a former D1 athlete, so he was a 4-year starter at New Mexico, and he was probably, I'm going to say 50. He was in his mid-30s when I was about 18.
Okay.
And so wife, 4 kids, big black guy, athletic, 6'3", 230 pounds, played D1 football, former military. So he had, strict principles. He came from an athletic background, and he was a good coach, and he was a tough guy that had very clear set of values. And so he was very influential for me, where my dad and I butted heads a lot growing up. And so he was kind of that guy that helped really put me on the path to be successful by teaching me and taking his patience. And even though I would argue or push back or butt heads, he saw that good in me, and he saw the potential, and he worked through those things with a couple of really tough knee-to-knee conversations, a few write-ups, I'm sure, and a lot of patience. But that was a guy that really set me up for success. And somebody for many, many years, every Thanksgiving I'd write him a card and call him, and stayed in contact still for many years. As a guy who really helped get me to where I am today.
Nice. That is, feeling confident, asking questions is a thing a lot of guys struggle with.
When we get to our gym,
yeah,
it blew me away getting into the gym business. How many adult men struggle asking questions?
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the reasons I started kind of doing this, was just I didn't realize how much wasn't being said, and how crazy people look at you if you actually just ask questions. And I know I struggle with it. I just started a new job, and I'm working with people that have been doing this 30, 40 years, 20 plus years. Everybody knows exactly what they're doing, exactly what they're talking about. And it's hard to come to the table. It's listen, I don't understand any of this. But the thing is, they also know that. There is no, you're completely naked. So you might as well ask the question.
Yeah.
Because going through that rebellious streak and then slowly breaking that down and being able to accept more and more responsibility, how was that for you?
It was definitely, having great bosses was, very critical to my success and my development. So, I learned a lot. And, I went to community college for a couple of years, and I actually went for strength and conditioning and wanted to be a personal trainer. And then I also took business and marketing classes. And so in those couple years, I ended up being less interested in becoming a strength and conditioning personal trainer and moved my focus to business, because as I was getting better and further along in my career in retail, it clicked more and made sense, as opposed to stopping what I was doing and then going into the gym industry and being just a personal trainer in a one-on-one environment. I enjoyed coaching and teaching and leading people. And so, strength and personal training is about a one-on-one. It's about connecting with one single person and making their life better and being able to develop them. And I enjoyed doing that for many people. And so I veered away from that piece and focused on, my retail career. And so to answer your question about, how was that hard for me or what that looked like, I focused on being coachable. And my first boss, Maurice, who I was talking about, he taught me how to be coachable. I always played sports, but when you're figuring out how to be a man, you push back a lot of times. I don't even know why. Like, the term rebel without a cause is a real thing.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell are you rebelling against? You're like, I don't know, but I'm telling you right now, I'm pushing back. Can you explain why? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you why, but I disagree with you. And people are, like, you're talking to educated adults and people who have had 20 years experience with you, and you're 20 and you are just confident. You don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
I've never owned a house. I've never had a loan. I have no money in my bank account right now. And I know more than you, and you don't know what you're talking about. And you are just so confident that you are right.
It's a weird space to occupy, because you're being so ignorant to your own ignorance, really. Like, you have no idea that you're running around not knowing what you're talking about, and you're talking to all these people that see it clearly.
You're right. My niece, my sister's daughter's 15 years old, and so we were up in Seattle where she lives with my mom, and I think it was this last summer, we took a trip up there real quick. And as we're talking through, they're getting ready the next day or a couple days later, they're flying down to Arizona where my mom lives. And so my niece is asking, oh, what time do we got to get up and leave? And so my mom's like, well, they're about a half an hour outside of Seattle. So, and it's a weekday, and the plane, I think, left at 9 or 9:30. So they were going to need to get up at 6 and leave by 6:30 and, go park and do the whole thing. And I just remember my niece's face and the way she scrunches it up and is explaining to my mom, who's traveled professionally through her whole career, who's lived in Seattle, who has flown on planes thousands of times, and the whole thing. And my niece is 15, doesn't have a driver's license, obviously, knows nothing about time. She wakes up when somebody wakes her up, and she's like, what, we don't need to leave that early, that's way too, you don't know what you're talking about. And I go, yeah, Mom, you need to listen to the person who has no experience whatsoever with driving or time management. What are you thinking, But now that you're older, like, you get to hear these other things or see from afar, and you're going, God, that was me.
Yeah, which is, I appreciate the grace that I got back then.
That's right. Because
now I'm like, yeah, I get it. You get it. You get it. You don't get it because they're not saying anything, but you get it. It's what's cool is that, because we had spoke at the gym a little bit, and you were talking about the Geek Squad and helping set that up, and you had also mentioned that because Best Buy was pretty straight laced, right? Straight laced, clean cut, everything nice and tidy.
SOP for everything, right? There's a book this thick that has every your employee. You get this is back when they printed employee handbooks, right? And so you would get an employee handbook, and then there was an online SOP, and literally every shelf has exactly where everything goes, and every employee has exactly a picture cut out in the employee handbook of what you're supposed to look like.
Right. That was one area that because you had already developed a level of responsibility by the time you got into this position. Did you have the tattoos in the beginning, or did those accumulate over the years? And then how did that translate into this situation with Best Buy and the Geek Squad?
It's a good question. It's good. It's a funny story. So when I turned 18 years old, I'll start back and then I'll move forward a little bit. So when I was 18 years old, my parents separated when I was in first grade. So I lived with my dad, and my mom worked in corporate retail, and she ended up taking a good job out in Wisconsin when I was in junior high. So by the time I was in high school, and I was kind of doing my own thing and rebelling and trying to focus on the next, piece of my life and figuring out all that kind of stuff. At 18 years old, on my birthday, I went to the local tattoo parlor and got a tattoo. And this is 25 years ago. So it wasn't really common, back then.
No, it's not like it is today.
No.
Yeah, because today, because eventually I'll get one. But the one thing I won't do is just, like I see a lot of people get a hodgepodge of American-style tattoos, and I'm like, why? Because back then, having a tattoo was special. It was a renegade's, like you were a different type of person that was getting tattoos, and then once you crossed that threshold, you occupied a new space in our culture. So 18, you went and got it. What'd you get?
So I got the lion from the Scottish flag.
Okay.
And so, and it was big, I was 145 pounds my senior year. So when this thing took over my arm, it was very dominant, and there was no color to it. It was just black. Okay. And I remember he put it on there, and you get to go look in the mirror, and you're like, yep, that's what I want. And you're sitting there, and, it's whatever, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours, and he's just hammering on you, and you're having a conversation with a guy you've never met in a chair in some dumpy place in Southeast Portland. And, it's not the really nice, bright, clean environments that they are today. This was a darker, dingier place off of Powell Boulevard, and in an old house with bad lighting, and it was just different. Now you go into a strip mall and there's a nice tattoo place, and they greet you, and the place is very bright and it's very sanitary. And not that this place was very dirty, but it was just a different experience. And so you're sitting there and you're just getting hammered on, and you stand up afterwards when he's all done, and you look at it and you're like, damn, that's not only big, that is dark. I'm a white dude. Okay. I can, if I'm in the sun regularly, I can get a little tan, but come on. We were born and raised in Milwaukee, Oregon, and there's not a lot of sun, and I'm busy working and these other things. So I have fairly light skin, and he goes and puts this huge tattoo on my arm, and I was like, well, that's a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. Because my dad only had a couple rules. You can do whatever. I grew up Catholic, my whole family. There's only a couple rules. No piercings, no tattoos until you move out. You can do whatever the hell you want to do when you move out, but you can't do it when you live in this house. So I'm in school my senior year. I have to hide my tattoo for the rest of the year until I move out. So I wear a long sleeve shirt or a sweatshirt or something around the house. Now I work a lot, obviously. I was working 55, 60 hours a week. So I was gone a lot. So there wasn't a lot of opportunity. But it was, once or twice a week where my dad would see each other. And I always had to be like, because it would pop out of my t-shirt. So, in high school, it's like, that's the dude with the tattoo. There was only me and my other good buddy, Eric, who got a tattoo when we were sophomores. His parents actually signed a waiver that allowed him to get a tattoo.
Oh, wow.
And it was just I don't remember anybody else. We had a good sized school, it was probably 1,600 kids. It was just him and I that had tattoos.
Yeah.
And they were both about the same size and, came down below our sleeve. And it was like, oh, those guys are cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else thought that, but the two of us definitely were like,
You felt cool.
we're cool.
Yeah.
I just want to let you know. If you don't think we're cool, I just want to let you know we are cool.
So you know.
Yeah.
We are cool. I don't know what you're doing over there. Oh, man.
So then, back to your kind of point. So at 18 years old, I've got one tattoo. I think 19 or 20, I end up at another place and I get a tattoo off the wall. Oh. I get one of those little whoop-de-doo kind of, Georgie Clooney kind of, I don't remember what movie he was in where he, had the kind of the designs and stuff. And so I got it on there because I had this one dominant tattoo and then I had this, everything else was blank. And I'm like, I got to get something. And I didn't think it, I'm 19 or 20. That's, you don't really think everything through. So I go there and I'm like, yep, I'll take that. So then they put it on and, and it feels okay. And after a few months, I'm like, this is ugly. And so then, I realize, I learn from my mistakes. I realize, okay, I got to think this out a little bit better. So I come up with some designs. I kind of figure out a couple more things. So over the next couple of years in my 20s, I got a couple more, but I had kept them to where they were at my sleeve length for work purposes. And, so as I was at Best Buy, working my way up, performing, and, this is the heyday of retail. So the companies are doing very, very well in the early mid-2000s. And this was a newer market. So Best Buy had only been here a few years. So we were in a very good market in the heyday of retail. And so we were delivering very good results. So I, out of 1,200 stores, was running departments and stores that were in the top 5 in the company out of like 1,200. Mm-hmm. And so I had won some contests, gotten opportunities to go back and meet people. I had a meeting with the CEO. I had met the president. I had, met the head of HR at some of these events and reward banquets and things like that, where they had given out awards and bonuses and vendors and all these kind of things. And so I had gotten opportunities to have conversations with some of those decision makers, which is what you and I were talking about at the gym the other day.
Yeah. How was what did you learn? Because, oftentimes as I've moved through life and experienced people at different levels, you'll notice little things about their priorities or their belief systems and little things you pick up. And as you're going through and you're having this success, how was that for you? How'd you take that in? Did you enjoy when you met these people? Did you find yourself feeling like because you obviously challenged the SOP, right? They had the SOPs, and you felt confident enough that in the quality of your work and your results to be able to push back a little bit.
Yeah, and this is probably, I'm going to say 4 years into my career. It might have been 5. So between 4 and 5 years. So by this time I'm 24 or 25. And I had multiple years at every position of good industry-leading results. Mm-hmm. And so I had earned a reputation as a result-driven leader, and I had been in front of people multiple times. So by this time, when I got opportunities to have some of these high-level interactions, I also had many opportunities to be coached by good bosses, and whether it's local meetings, regional meetings, etc. Before I got to the national meeting and some of those reward banquets, where I had the opportunity to interact and do these feedback sessions where they're asking you, what can we do better? How can we be a better company in those things?
Oh, okay.
So I had learned over those 4 or 5 years how to speak to these people, although I certainly wasn't great by then, right? I was still a work in progress. But I had learned how to have better intelligent conversations while trying to make your point that's against status quo. Mm-hmm. So I was asked a question, what can we do to be a better company? How can we, all inclusive wasn't necessarily a phrase back then, right?
Right.
Inclusivity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good with words, but I don't know if I pronounce it right.
You got it.
And so HR was sitting at a table with the president of the company and had asked basically, how can we be a more inclusive company? And I had brought up the point, I'm from Portland, Oregon, blah, blah. You guys are out here in Florida, Minnesota, these other areas. Tattoos are by, now I'm in my mid-20s, so this is 2003, 2004. This is now becoming more regular. And people are starting to come into our stores who have tattoos. Mm-hmm. We're looking to hire good staff. We're trying to, grow our sales. We're now in the market 4 or 5 years. So, you're now at an established company in the market. So continually growing your sales is not as easy every year you're there. So, having talented people is important, and pay and compensation and all the package that you bring together. And one thing that the company policy was no visible tattoos, no piercings. Mm-hmm. And I had kind of worked through that, and I said, man, they didn't know. I was wearing a long sleeve shirt, so they didn't know that I have tattoos. And, in our conversation, I said, why are we eliminating a group of people that are these are our clients, and we want to hire people who look and think like our employees, and we want to bring in people from our neighborhoods. And why are we closing them off as an opportunity to be a part of our culture and our business? Just because they have a tattoo. Now, if they have some tattoos that say some crazy stuff that go against what our company's belief is, fine. Mm-hmm. But come on, if somebody has a nautical sign, or somebody has a 8-ball, well, maybe an 8-ball is not a great example, but or a snake or something, or a heart, I don't know. Like,
it doesn't matter.
What are we talking about here? Somebody has a heart tattooed on their arm right here. It's you can't have that.
Well, that was one of the main reasons I never got tattoos, was because
that's right.
Because I'm biracial, but the black, I have the black side of my family, and it was like, listen, you can't, like, you want to make it, you want to move forward in life, you cannot have tattoos. Yeah. And it was like, well, then I'll get them after I'm successful, because I just didn't want to risk it. And
I'm wearing a collared shirt the rest of my life.
Dude,
long sleeve collared shirt.
If I can get out of the collared shirt, I'll be a happy man. So you kind of let them know this, and they were receptive?
They were, and we went back and forth. It was a good long conversation, and within the next 30 days, the company updated their policy, and they allowed tattoos. They allowed 1 earring per ear, and they slowly changed that piece. And that felt very good. That was when I, learned at a young age how important it is to communicate what you're trying to say in an intelligent way, and the power of words with the right people, that you can influence somebody regardless of title. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know that I could articulate that when I was 25, but that really was my takeaway is, man, you can influence a lot of important people if you have the ability to be transparent and articulate things in the right way. You can make a change, and it's not about your title. You got to earn your right to have a place at the table. Right. If you're not winning, a lot of people aren't listening to you.
Yeah, right. Well, the burden of proof. You have to prove that you're, I haven't won shit in jiu-jitsu.
We'll talk about the mat enforcer piece. I feel like there's an opportunity there. We'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get there. So as you climb through Best Buy, your confidence is high. Where did life take you next?
So
I inferred that. I don't know if your confidence was high or not, so excuse me.
Oh, it was high.
Okay.
Sometimes a little too high. That's not a reference to weed. But in 2009, the market's going down. I've been there about 10 years. I'm at a district manager level. I've done some very good things. And I make a decision. They're doing voluntary severance packages. and they're hefty severance packages. So I'm looking at it like, man, I've been there 10 years, so it includes tenure and performance and level, and they've got all these different packages. A lot of companies were doing this in 2008, 2009, where they're and some people are even doing it now. Intel was doing some of these big voluntary severance packages for some of their people.
Oh, really? Recently?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And so it was really a precursor to the layoffs that they were going to do. And I felt very confident about where my position was. But I also, there was some, I had been doing it now 9.5 years. I had been in the same position about 5 years. And there was some things that I didn't really enjoy about the position in the market I was in with some of the people, traveling around with them. And there was a couple of leaders there that weren't developing me, that had different values than I had. And I just, I didn't click with them. And so it was an opportunity for me to move on and put some money in the bank and really help put myself in a financial position at 29 years old, right before I turned the big 3-0, to take that, what I, thought would be the next step in my life. And I had reached out to some other friends I had made over the years, and I had a friend at Office Depot, and they were hiring. So I had done some interviews over there, and then I made the decision in the summertime to leave Best Buy, and took a few months off and took a position at Office Depot, which was totally different from electronics to office supplies. But retail's retail. You're putting stuff on shelves and helping people coming through the doors.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
a lot of similarities, just you're selling different products and services.
Right. So a lot of the lessons that you took from Best Buy, you were able to implement at Office Depot.
I was. And, the district manager over there was looking for somebody to come in and really make a splashy impact in his market. He had some very veteran leaders, and he needed a splash of youth infused into his market. And so, he interviewed me, and we talked a lot about that. And so I did that. And I was at Office Depot for 7 years through their merger with Office Max. And so I was a store manager and a district manager over there, and had some good years over there. Although the office supply industry is a very tough industry based on low revenue, high profit, but oversized stores, and it's not a flashy, fun. Selling electronics is a lot more fun than selling envelopes.
Right. It's hard to make a splash, right? It's
The energy level's different when you walk in and you're running a Best Buy, a $75 million a year store, 40,000 square feet, and your average employee is probably 22 and maybe was out till 1 a.m. the night before, and has 2 rock stars in them already at 9 a.m.
right.
They're a lot more energetic, and life's ahead of them. Office supplies, their life a lot of times has already happened, and they're just drinking coffee. They're past the rock star piece, and they're looking towards their day of making copies or selling envelopes, and it's not quite as flashy. So, I brought a lot of energy and painted a picture and really tried to provide some leadership and brought some people in from my past and helped turn a struggling market around to a top 5 market in their company, and delivered industry-leading results within their measurables within a couple of years at each store I ran. And then ultimately, when I was a district, I turned around both Seattle and Oregon before I left to be a regional vice president at Jackson Hewitt Tax Accounting.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So
I'm not doing your taxes, just to be clear. You don't want me doing your taxes.
no, I don't want. Well, I don't know. It
I'll give you
depends.
advice, but you don't want me doing
I appreciate it because my taxes matter now.
it. Yeah.
When you were turning these things around, what were some of the valuable skills what were some of the things that you were able to implement that really allowed you to garner real results? Because a lot of people I'm gonna come in, I'm make an impact. And they just say it, but they don't. There's the route to actually making substantive impact, measurable results.
Yeah.
it's elusive for a lot of people.
Have you heard of a SMART action plan?
I've heard of it.
Yep. So SMART. I mean, that's how you spell smart, obviously, but I always think of it visually from vertical, SMART, and it stands for specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely. And, when you're putting a plan together, you have to put everything in that format. I mean, you don't have to, but that's how I was trained, and that's how I looked at it. And so whenever I would take over a store, and my specialty in every location I ran, every district I ran, and ultimately when I left retail after 22 years, the region I ran, I took over struggling locations or markets. And my specialty is implementing structure and putting talented people in there, putting a vision together, and then putting it all together through culture and execution.
Okay.
And how funny life is that, a kid that was, raised in Milwaukee High School from a divorced family who was a rebel pushing back against nothing, found structure and execution as a way to success. And my whole life is very regimented and very rhythmic, and that's something that I base my whole life around. Is I eat the same thing 7 days a week for breakfast, the exact same thing. I don't waver.
Really?
I don't.
Okay.
I eat food for fuel. I don't eat it for taste.
Okay.
Now the banana bread, I got to tell you, was fantastic.
Thank you.
I start out my day with the same breakfast because there's no thought to it, and it's healthy. It gets me going. It takes no time whatsoever, and I'm on the go, and I'm done, and it's just part of my rhythm. It's just what I do, and so at any rate, that in my retail world, that was what I went into and put together. So as a leader, it's very difficult. I'm a big sports guy. And so football, basketball, baseball, I don't really pay much attention to basketball and baseball anymore. I'm still a big, avid college football fan, not as much pro anymore. Mm-hmm. But when you think about coaches who come into programs, they're all selling a vision. They're telling a story.
Yeah.
And, some of them turn it around and some of them don't. And, every administration that, hires a coach would love to be able to predict which one can do it, which one can't do it.
Right.
And it comes down to decision making and authenticity. Is the coach authentic or is he full of shit?
Right.
If you're authentic and you're selling a real vision and you lead by example, and you walk the walk and talk the talk with it, and you put talented people in place and hold them accountable, and you set big goals, I think you can get to where you want to be.
Shit, Primetime's proven that now. And
don't get me started on prime time. So I got what's funny is I got a bet with a good friend of mine, Josh. We went to high school together. He's our high school quarterback. We go back to high school, right? And he's a big prime believer.
Okay.
And I'm not there yet.
Okay.
So sometimes I'm a late adopter on things.
That's okay. That skepticism is good from time to time.
A little bit. And so Prime did it at this level, right?
Yeah.
So he did it at Jackson State. And he
Colorado.
did it very well.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'll be able to duplicate that at Colorado. I think he'll make an instant impact. I mean, that's not saying a lot because they were terrible. Mm-hmm. And look, Mel Tucker did it, right? He did it in a 2-year window, and then he catapulted from here to here and parlayed that into a $9 million a year contract at Michigan State.
Yeah.
So is Colorado going to support Dion to the level that he deserves? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is he going to be able to get the boosters to deliver the NIL deals to get the players? I don't know. Some of these other schools have big donors. Some of these other schools have a lot deeper pockets and a more supportive administration. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that Colorado is that.
It'll be interesting to see. I know, most of my football fanhood, I really enjoyed the NFL mostly because I followed college football so closely, right. And then I enjoyed seeing the guys develop and seeing the nuances of guys. And one of the things about coaching and one of the things about being an adult male is that consistency is just so. It's such an important piece of being successful, of continuing to move yourself forward. Because consistency means that you could be reliable. If you're reliable, people can trust you. And if people trust you, you get access to opportunities that they have because they believe in you.
Yeah.
And I know when I see some of the fighters, I'm a hobbyist, so I'm only there, 3-4 days a week. But you see the guys that are workmanlike in it, and it comes through in the quality of their craft. And it's interesting because to impose that level of structure on a person that punches people for a living is it's an interesting thing. So you ended up in tax accounting.
I did.
How'd that go?
I'm going to finish my thing on Prime, and then I did.
Yeah.
So my buddy Josh from high school, we were going back and forth, and he believes in Prime, and so I made him a bet that I would, take him and his family out to Ruth Chris or El Gaucho. I can't remember which one it was.
Okay.
I think it's Ruth Chris. And he'll remind me for sure. He put it out on social media. He's like, on this day, Brandon, announced it. So he earmarked it right there. And the bet was that he'll never win 10 games. I didn't put a timeline on it.
Okay.
I said he won't win 10 games at Colorado.
Okay.
And so I think he can get to 9 games.
Uh-huh.
I think Oregon, Washington, USC, Utah, I think those teams are really built to beat him. I think he'll always get great cornerbacks. Uh-huh. If you're a young superstar cornerback, you want to play for Dion. I think he'll get really talented, probably wide receivers. I don't know that he is the guy. If he hires a stud OL coach and a DL coach, that's where he's got to get better. Is those coaches have got to be able to recruit and go get those linemen trenches to win against the battles against the other Pac-12 guys.
Well, interesting you say that too, because one of the problems that the Pac-12 has always had is the ability to consistently produce victories over each other.
Yeah.
Because they
cannibalize each other.
They do. And it's frustrating because it's like we should be in the national title game in multiple years. And it just – they cannibalize themselves, and then bam, we got another SEC team there. But one of the things that the SEC does well is they're freaking consistent. Those teams,
if you only play 8, I'm gonna bash on the SEC for a second.
Please do.
They play 8 conference games,
mm-hmm.
So they play 1 Power 5 non-conference game. And they play 3 Powder Puff games.
Yeah.
And of those 3 Powder Puff games, the thing that drives me the most nuts, if you look at the Pac-12, they play 9 conference games. SEC plays 8.
Mm-hmm.
They schedule all 3 of their non-conference games in the first 3 weeks.
Yeah.
The only one who doesn't is USC. They end at the end of the year with Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else plays the first 3 against each other.
Yeah.
The SEC basically gets a bye week in week 9, 10, and 11 when they're playing Tennessee Chattanooga.
Yeah.
And they're playing, the Lady of Our Sorrows from, Georgia and all these other really low-level teams that they're paying $1 million to rest their players in that time, build up their stats. So think about the exposure they get through ESPN with the TV contracts, which is why we get it shoved down our throats that they're so good.
Yeah.
And then the statistics they're able to build with 3 Powder Puff games, and look at how long they keep their starters in against these teams.
Yeah.
When Chip Kelly and Marcus Mariota were just running wild, Chip Kelly pulled Marcus out sometimes after halftime.
Yeah.
The year Marcus Mariota won the Heisman, they could have scored 80 points every game, 100 points. There was times they had 50 and 60 at halftime.
I remember that year. And it was amazing. And you're right, because one of my running jokes for the SEC is, it's like these guys are so good. Why are they playing, I just make up a team like Louisiana Tech Baptist University, and he just like but the Pac-12 always just ate each other alive, and oftentimes you'd get our best team was the best team in the country, and then end of one of the games they'd lose, and then bam, there's no Pac-12 representation. Right. Always super frustrating.
This could be a whole nother podcast.
Oh, it could. And
college football, man.
Oh man, we can, and we'll have fun with that because I used to be an absolute nut about college football. I used to just love it. I used to devour it every single weekend. But we'll continue on the track we're on. We'll have to come back to this because
I just got to say, I love that college football players have NIL deals now and are able to make money from which they produce for these schools and are of legal age 18 and older. They're adults where the NCAA and these institutions have made millions and billions of dollars off of these young men. And finally, these guys are allowed to make money where prior to the NIL, they couldn't get a sandwich given to them from the local Subway without violating a rule. And a lot of people across the country don't understand how clamped down these athletes had it. Yeah, they get an education, right? But that's not enough.
No, not for what they're generating.
Right.
For the school, for these networks. And South Park had a great episode about college football. And
even video games. You can go to the store and look and you see your name, your jersey. You're on the front of that video game. People are playing you. People know you everywhere. You can't make $1 off of that.
Cartman dressed up like Colonel Sanders, and he's at the University of Colorado, and he's like, "Tell me how you pay for your slaves, sir." And he's like, "They're student athletes." He's like, "Student athletes, I like that." And it's just
I haven't seen that one.
Oh,
I
man.
don't watch South Park. But
it's a hoot. It's
now I got to check it out.
I'll send it to you. It's just a clip, but it's interesting because it's so exploitive, and these kids. I mean, people have no idea how people watch football and it looks violent, but you have no idea how violent it really is.
It, in my opinion, I think it's more violent than MMA. It is because, in my opinion, right, and I've seen both for years.
Up close.
You're in a full-blown car wreck in both, okay? So let's put that out there. But you're hitting full speed at 25 plus miles an hour, and certain positions on the football field obviously take more hits than damage than others. But you're doing that throughout an entire. So if you're a starter, you're doing that every single either Saturday or Sunday, and then you have drills throughout the whole week, and you have non-contact and you have full contact drills, and then you're doing that full speed.
Yeah.
The thing that football gets that MMA doesn't, which is how this gets solved. I'll work on this because as we go into MMA, I have a vision of how to change MMA. They have doctors on staff, even at the college level.
Oh yeah,
chiropractors, acupuncturists, massage therapists,
all of it.
Dietitians, right? There's food, there's protein drinks. You just walk up and everything's ready to go. And in MMA, that if guys come from the football world and they come into MMA, whether it's Greg Hardy or all these other guys who have attempted to do it, Matt Mitrione and many others, and they come in and the first thing they're looking around is, so
who's taking care of me?
Who's rubbing me down after practice today?
Yeah.
The white belt over there and the gi's gonna have to do it because. It's not on that level of professional sport. There's not money in it. There's not the promotion. And it's just the UFC and Bellator and PFL. They're the ones who make the money. There's no teams,
right? So
the teams don't fill the stadiums. Only the promotion does,
right?
So they get all the revenue.
Huh. I look forward to exploring your thoughts on that because it's been a fascinating journey watching. And I spoke to Fob a little bit about this, but watching the sport evolve, because I was a big Pride Fighting Championship fan.
The best.
It was the best.
The best.
It was just...
The presentation merged... Now, I was a pro wrestling mark growing up.
Same.
So it merged the presentation, and the fans in Japan are very educated. And so they're very respectful, very appreciative. They recognize more details. And so just the transitions and their energy, they could transfer their energy to the fighters.
Yeah. And I felt, I remember watching the first few UFCs with my dad, and then I fell out of love with it because there was a period, and not out of any disrespect for the fighters at that time, but I felt like UFC went through like a frat boy board short kind of phase. And I was watching Pride Fighting Championships. I'm like, these are the fucking guys. They're Dutch kickboxers. There's violent, incredibly violent. These were knockdown, drag out fights, and some of them, weight classes didn't matter. These guys were getting after it. And but to see the sport continue to grow, and to now, getting the opportunity to be a part of like one of the recognized brands of gym, right? But how that power in MMA gets decentralized, I'll be curious to see how it continues to evolve. Because now we're moving up to it. Tax accountant. How long was that? How did that transition?
So I left Office Depot after 7 years there. So I would have been, I don't know, maybe 36. And my boss at the time left Office Depot as the regional vice president to become the president of Jackson Hewitt. So as he was at Jackson Hewitt, he wanted to assemble his team and get some of his leaders in there. And so he brought myself and a couple other guys across the country on to be regional vice presidents. So I joined the company and was there for 2 years, and traveled all over the United States and had a little over 300 locations. And they had locations in Walmart. They have standalone locations. And interesting business, interesting people within that business, because it's a seasonal business. It's not a traditional store where you walk in that's open 365 days a year. Mm-hmm. So a lot of different strategy, a lot of different managing levels of people. I went from Best Buy, where your average age is 22, to, let's say, Office Depot, where your average age is, I don't know, let's say 40. And then I go to Jackson Hewitt, the average age you're managing is 63.
Okay.
Because these are people who are retired mostly or towards retirement age, were tax accountants, were CPAs, or just doing it as a hobby, and have extra time but don't want to work full time. So you're getting the pool you're pulling from is an older generation that is looking to not work a full-time job. So again, another challenge for me in my leadership to be able to manage people with a mostly introverted personality. Mm-hmm. Now, Best Buy, extrovert personality, fun, outgoing. Office Depot, a little less. Tax accounting, extremely less. And you're not, if you've ever had your taxes done professionally.
Oh,
yeah, you go in there and it is very calm. It's very quiet. It's very low energy. It's almost a little depressing. Like, we're gonna have to pay this year.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to figure out like how to break the news to you. You owe $7,200, and you're like, can you write a check today?
Yeah, that department was always quiet as a mouse, and just they're there to do their work.
And Jackson Hewitt specifically, as I learned their model joining the company, because I didn't do a lot of research. I had a boss. I had a relationship with him. He called me up, made me a fantastic offer. And so, I had all the trust in the world in him. And, so I jumped over with doing very little research.
Okay.
And not that even if I did a bunch more research, I would have not made the decision, but I just didn't know a lot about their target audience, their clientele, their profitability, and some of these other things. And learning their business model. Wow, what a business model. They have a very specific target audience. They go after low income, refund advance type clients, where it's a typical, they want to take care of everybody, don't get me wrong, but the majority of their clientele is, that's why they're in Walmarts. They're signed with Walmarts because that's their target client, and it's people who mostly rent, live in apartments, have multiple kids, don't have money for Christmas, so they go and do a refund advance type loan against their taxes, and then they front them money. And I'd never even heard of this. I didn't even know this was a thing.
I'm learning right now.
Right. So, okay, so you didn't know either.
No.
And H&R Block does the same thing. And so, they put it out there that they're helping people be able to buy Christmas gifts for their kids, and they load it on a card, and then the bank backs it, and the government then, gives them a portion of the money, and they file their return in January, and it's a 3-step return process where they get a little money, then a decent amount of money, and then the rest of the money, and blah, blah. And then they charge them a chunk of money for doing the return.
Right.
But they're handling all the risk, too. So it's an interesting model that I was like, I'd never even heard of this. I didn't know that was a service, because, I don't even know. I'd never even seen commercials when I thought about it. I'm like, do you guys advertise? How do you advertise?
Yeah.
So that was an interesting 2 years. I enjoyed my time there. I met some good people. I learned some things about taxes. In that time, is when I bought the gym.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Now we're getting to where, how did I become a part of the gym, and how did I end up buying the gym?
Yeah. Yeah, because that's, because you see, and it's interesting too, because, everybody loves Fabiano. Fabiano wants.
I don't know. I don't know if every opponent loves Fabiano.
No, I don't think any opponent would love Fabiano. Shit, I don't like rolling with him myself. Every time I think I'm making progress, I just get, he's so big that you forget he's good too, because you're just like, okay, I'm gonna grab this boulder, and then the boulder like cartwheels over you, and you're like, oh, okay.
It does the splits while putting 300 pounds of knee ride pressure on your sternum,
dude.
And can you believe he tapped a black belt in world competition with a knee on belly ride?
Fuck yeah. Oh, Brandon, you don't grapple enough with us. I remember a day he got so if anybody doesn't know, Fabiano is over 300 pounds.
Ish.
World champion jiu-jitsu black belt.
We've never seen him on a scale.
No, we have not. Yeah. He's grappling with Mario, and he does that. He just grabs him by the collar and the pants and just pulls him into his knee and just...
Was he angry at Mario?
I don't know.
Does Mario know?
I don't know if Mario knows. I mean, Mario's usually high before practice, so maybe that was
Mario
it.
Thinking, what did I do?
Mario taps, and Fabiano tells him, you can't tap to that. The round ends, and then Fabiano does it to me. And I'm like, he said I can't tap. I can't breathe. I guess I'm just going to die here. I guess I just... But he wants to train. He wants to coach. He wants to teach. But that doesn't always end up with his best interest as an owner of a business in mind, right? So how did you end up getting associated with Fabiano and then start making your move to actually owning a gym?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I had met Fabiano. He was bouncing at a club with a guy that I was friends with. And so the guys I was friends with, his name's Troy. Troy and I used to train together. So he was a purple belt in jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
And he kind of had his own gym, kind of. It wasn't like a full-blown business with a storefront, but he had a gym in the back of the Jungle Gym over here just down Foster on 54th and Foster. It's called Foster Fitness now.
Okay.
And so he had maybe like 1,000 square foot room with some mats, and him and I started working out together and training jiu-jitsu and, also striking and doing some other various things, because I actually did karate all the way up and did some boxing and kickboxing from 6 all the way to 16.
Okay.
And so I had always been into martial arts and been an avid fan of martial arts.
Bring this down a little bit more. There we go.
So that was something that by the time I didn't have a ton of extra time because I've always been a 60 plus hour work week guy, especially in retail, traveling, and all the years I was on the road. So as I really in my early 30s got back into being more in town when I was a district manager with Office Depot, that was a time that I was home at night in my bed every night. Or if I traveled, it was only like one day. So I was able to be consistent and train with Troy. And then he was a heavyweight.
Okay.
And so him and Fob worked together. And then Fob was the head coach, he was the jiu-jitsu coach at Team Quest. And I had gone to Team Quest. I'd done their trial. And it just wasn't for me. I didn't like the vibe there. And so I was always a humongous MMA fan, right? From the first UFCs all the way to Pride. I was a statistical nerd, so I was always into all kinds of statistics and metrics and all those other kind of things, which is partly what helped me be successful in retail. And so I knew who Fabiano was the first time I met him. I'd already known who he was. I'd seen him fight in the UFC, and I wasn't a big jiu-jitsu guy or knew a lot about jiu-jitsu per se, but I knew a lot in MMA. And so I had seen a couple of his fights, knew who he was, met him, and so then he was cross-training with Troy at Troy's little gym. He would come over there once or twice a week, and so I got a chance to train with Fabiano. I even sparred him a couple of times early on, which was very painful. His left hook to the body is just like his knee on belly is atrocious. Okay, his left hook to the body is as brutal, in my opinion. Now, I've taken both.
Okay.
Full disclosure. I've taken knee on belly and left hook to the body, and they're both terrible. So I can confidently say, I don't know which one's worse, and I'd rather not compare them again, but they're both awful. He is a very powerful man. He is the most powerful guy I've ever been around.
Yeah, same, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
And I've been around a lot, just all the years lifting weights and playing sports. I've been around a lot of big, strong guys. I've been in, strength competition, strongmans. I have a few friends that work in that industry and have had a chance to, I've been to Gold's Gym down in Venice Beach and done some of those. That's where I got this hat.
Oh, nice.
And met a lot of those guys over the years. Have some friends that are pro bodybuilders, and nothing compared to Fabiano. When we first started rolling around, he didn't kill me, so that was very nice of him. And he was getting ready for some fights, and he was working out within that gym because it's a 5,000 square foot weightlifting gym, and 1,000 square feet was a back room where we trained. So Fabiano was doing weights at this gym, and watching him work out was, now this is when he was, I don't remember which fight he was getting ready for, but he was close to, let's say 275. He was working his way down to get to 265, and he was lean. He was very strong. He'd do cardio for, he'd get on that gauntlet, the Stairmaster, just the rotating gauntlet.
Yeah.
And I would watch him. He probably personally rusted this machine out.
Oh, wow.
Because he sweat. It just pooled on this thing. And he would do it for, we'd have to ask him how long he did it for. At least 45 minutes.
Okay.
And just, and then he would do weights. And I watched him bench press 5 45s on each side. Not like warm up, not like bodybuilder, work your way up and, slowly do it and breathe and this kind of thing. And he's benching over 400 pounds for reps. just exploding, and then supersetting it with back, where he has 5 plates on the back machine. He's rocking the back machine, the hammer strength, the full size hammer strength, because he's swinging it and he's just squeezing it all the way in and just repping it at 10, 15 reps. I was just blown away. I'd never seen anybody push the pace and work out at the level he did at that size. And insane.
He's a specimen. He's a specimen. So you guys got a chance to train at the gym. And then when did you start weaving your way into partnering together?
Yeah, so that took a few years. So I was training with Troy, and that's how I met Lance. So Lance was my first training partner.
Okay.
So Lance was a part of that gym. Lance lifted weights, and
he was a bodybuilder as well.
He was. He did a competition, and he definitely has that picture in his wallet, on his phone, in a poster, on his wall at home, in his office. He probably looks at it every day, I'm going to say.
I would imagine. He's got the bodybuilder smile, too, when you check it.
He's a handsome Hawaiian.
Yeah.
And look, he looked great in that picture. So you know what? God bless him. I'm glad that he has that thing to look at every day. So he was my first training partner along with Troy. It was him, and there was maybe a couple other guys. I mean, the gym literally had 4 or 5 guys. And Lance already had a little jiu-jitsu underneath him. And so we flowed very well. We got a chance to roll. He was a strong guy. I was a fairly strong guy. So, we worked well together. And so I really, we even lifted weights together and kind of rolled together. And so I really enjoyed that. Obviously, Lance is a very smart guy. He's a good, successful businessman. We always had great conversations, worked out well, trained together. And so I really enjoyed that camaraderie, if you will. Lance and I used to spar weekly. He can kick, he can punch. Lance is a well-rounded guy. And so we used to spar together. We had a lot of good times at that gym. And so so we did that for a couple years. And then Gracie Baja opened up, and that gym shrunk from 5,000 square feet to 2,500 square feet. And the other side of that gym became Gracie Baja. And so the day that it opened was Fabiano. So him and I had a couple years. Now, his English wasn't fantastic at this time. And so, we had talked here, we had talked there, we had trained, but we didn't have great, long, deep conversations. He was a busy guy. He was bouncing, had a wife and a kid. He was still training full time. He was teaching jiu-jitsu. And so, we'd talk here and there, but we didn't have, this deep relationship or anything by then. So a couple of years goes by, and Gracie Baja opens up, and he, along with a guy named Rodrigo, who owns the Seattle Gracie Baja, opened this gym together. Fabiano leaves Team Quest, comes over here, starts the thing all on his own. With Rodrigo, right? They do it together. And so Rodrigo's the support system to ensure that this thing takes off. And so I'm one of the first guys to sign up. I don't know if I was the first or not, but whatever. I was within the first few guys to sign up. And then Fob had other guys who made the transfer over. Howie, Manny, Josh Bennett.
Team Quest guys
who were more grappling guys who weren't MMA guys. Phil Roberti, Doc, right? A lot of these guys who had come over that were from Team Quest that had a relationship, because Fob was the first one to bring gi to Team Quest.
Okay.
Did he talk about that?
No, we didn't get a chance. We focused on MMA, so I'm going to have a follow-up conversation more focused on jiu-jitsu, but I found it's just such a well-known topic that I figured it'd be an easy introduction for him.
Yeah.
And then we can continue to go down the jiu-jitsu track, which is obviously the track I've focused on, though I want to start cross-training. I wanted to get to purple belt first because I felt like there was just I wanted to get good as fast as possible, and I knew I couldn't do that if I was unfocused.
Sure.
So I just poured myself into jiu-jitsu.
So at this time, I'm training, but not a lot, couple days a week. I'm still very focused on my career. I'm in my early 30s, and a couple years goes by, and I am running Office Depot. So I have access to print centers, stores, supplies, all those kind of things. And I see that they're lacking in some of these type of things, right? Whether it's marketing materials, he needs posters printed up, or I hung a TV, did the sound system, put up some security cameras, printed up some posters, flyers. I just took it upon myself to do some of these things. And so Fabiano and I's relationship and conversations continued to grow at a higher level with, hey, have you thought about doing this? How about I do this for you? And, he graciously allowed me to kind of do some of those things. And then, as he knew what I did for a living and my retail experience and running stores and some of those things. So he let me do a lot of that kind of stuff. So, the location was at that gym. Gracie Baja was at that gym for, a few years. And then the gym needed to move. And before it needed to move, Doc Palmer had bought the gym from Rodrigo.
Okay.
So Doc Palmer took over the gym, but he's a full-time doctor. And so he's running his business, and he's a phenomenal foot doctor, right? And he's got a good practice, and he's busy. And then he bought it mostly because he wanted to keep training. He believed in it, believed in Fabiano. Fabiano's wife works for Doc. And he's got a very close relationship with Fabiano, and he believed in Fab and the services he was providing. So shortly thereafter, the Jungle Gym goes in a different direction, and they need to find a new location. So that's how they end up at 85th and Foster. Doc ends up buying that building on kind of a bam, bam, bam whim, and the guy goes and spends his money and buys a building. And then, in that meantime, Gracie Baja takes on some fighters. It was just a jiu-jitsu gym. Rose City closes down, and there's this pool of talented fighters. Mm-hmm. And at this time, Chael gets suspended from the UFC.
For steroids?
Performance enhancing drugs.
Excuse me. Sorry, Chael. These were, I think I saw him on another podcast, and he was saying, these were prescribed medications.
They were.
So let's go with that. Chael, excuse me.
I love it. He goes, "Why did you take performance enhancing drugs?" Chael says, "'Cause they work." That's the greatest answer ever, right?
Chael's the best.
He goes, "Why do you take Advil?" "'Cause it works."
Yeah.
It's like, same thing. So caffeine, right? He, his analogies are always pretty spot on.
Yeah.
So Chael comes over there. He's suspended. He gets into grappling. I believe at the time he's a purple belt. I'd have to ask Fabiano how that exactly happened. Was he already belted at Team Quest or whatever? But he was a purple belt at that time, and that's how he started focusing on jiu-jitsu. And then, because he's suspended, he can't go compete anywhere. He can't do any of that stuff.
Right.
And in fact, he thought his career was over.
Okay.
And Fabiano gets him back on the track, gets him to believe in jiu-jitsu, gets him puts him in touch with these people. He gets a grappling competition against Andre Galvo, and then he grapples Michael Bisping, and then the next thing you know, he's ADCC, and then he's
grappling Craig Jones.
Was it super fight, open super weight, whatever, and he beats that guy who's a world champion over there, and he's still the current champion over there in ADCC for, I can't remember what division it is. And so, Fab pushes him into this and gets him into this. And then in their conversation, comes up with the Submission Underground business model and name and the whole thing. And so then he takes that and kind of runs with it. And then obviously Bellator thing opens back up and whatever. So as Rose City, the local MMA gym where the majority of guys, there was basically Rose City, and then there was Team Quest. But even Team Quest wasn't what it once was. I don't remember the timeline if Matt Lindland had already left and then he'd taken the Olympic wrestling coach position.
Okay.
But it was not anywhere close to what it was. Robert Falls at this time had already left and gone to Extreme Couture, and so it had gone significantly down, and the name fighters were no longer there, and the members were much lower. So these fighters start coming over, and it's like Fob wanted a jiu-jitsu gym. Mm-hmm. He was that's why he was Gracie Barra.
Okay.
Just jiu-jitsu. And so he's now got some fighters with some jiu-jitsu guys, right? And there's this balance of you got jiu-jitsu guys wearing a gi with pajamas, the whole thing, they're bowing, and then you got MMA guys who are punching each other in the face and walking around with their shirts off, and you're like trying to make this all work. And then they have to move out, and that was for, I don't know, maybe 6 months or whatever. And then boom, they got to move out of that first location. Doc buys the second location, the building. We do all the remodel. That's where Manny and I and some of the other guys, Ronnie Marquez, Phil Roberti, Josh, a bunch of guys. I'm probably forgetting some other names. Howie, obviously, and some of these guys. We do the whole build out of this 4,500 square foot building. And we had a couple contractor friends. I own a construction company as well. I didn't at the time, but I had many years of relationships with guys who are electricians and plumbers and other things, and so did Manny. And so we used our friends to do the HVAC, the electrical, the bathroom build out, etc. So we get this building turned around in 60 days, and completely turn it over and get it open back up. And so before you know it, Paige Van Zant joins the gym, Austin Vanderfort joins the gym, a young Eric McConico joins the gym, Jake Smith's there, Rudy Shafra, Tyree Fortune, Sunshine. Ed Herman moves back from Colorado. He had owned Trials MMA with Ryan Schultz in Colorado, and then he moved back here.
Dave Jensen, part of that crew?
Dave Jansen joined the gym, and there's going to be other guys. I'm forgetting. Ronnie Marquez was there, and we had a bunch of guys regionally. Luis, Hamza, John Simone, Ricky Simone, obviously. So you had these guys who weren't quite at this level yet. So we had guys at this level, then we had the next crop of guys that were young and hungry and ready for it. So Andy Minsker is a boxing coach. Ian Loveland's a striking coach. And you're starting to see all the talent under one roof. Some more grapplers start coming in. So now you've got some Warren Brooks, who's an intricate part of the growth of the gym. And he's the guy who really brought leg locks and knee bars and heel hooks. He brought that to the gym that many guys still use to this day, because Fabiano really wasn't that guy.
No, and actually you see it in some of Warren's students, and actually you get a chance to see the variety of guys, because some of the guys that are the leg lockers now come from they're really Warren's lineage, right? So you have like a guy named Sean who trains.
Yep.
Sean Moody. You have Chase, obviously.
Right. Chase came to us as, I'm going to say, a purple belt.
Okay.
But he moved out from Kentucky.
Yeah.
And Chase has continued that on, and Chase is at a very high level as a black belt now under Fabiano and Warren both, and a guy that is doing great things under our FSBJJ brand, and has just a phenomenal blend of traditional jiu-jitsu, no-gi jiu-jitsu, heel hooks, ankle locks, transitions. Like, he's a very well-rounded coach and really connects with people at all levels. So one of many of our great coaches. But, so he had brought him out here and really helped influence that, which is another transition into some of our blending traditional BJJ and our MMA.
Mm-hmm. So the gym, get Gracie Baja, Doc buys the building. You guys got all this talent, and you got the the layers, right? The layers of talent, which is interesting because you actually see it in MMA. You see the march to the top of the pyramid and then the tumble back down.
Yep.
But so that gym's running for a while, and I think we spoke. Actually, I don't even think we just did, because I was watching that gym from afar because I was working nights at a dispensary. So
Which one?
At Shango.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, Shango just down the street. I had, I had to change my career, and then I had to kind of take a step back, and then I need to get back at the bottom and just do retail, and just kind of
Retail's there.
it's there, and I did it for a while, and I got to explore it, and I was working nights, and I don't know why I didn't check the website. It just didn't occur to me that I could train during the day, so I was just biding my time, and then as soon as I got another job, I was going to go to the gym. I get a job with Multnomah County, and then bam, gym's gone. And I was livid.
Have I ever apologized to you for that?
No.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Apology was accepted as soon as I walked in the new building. So,
I could have done a better job with putting up some information on the second building, leading you to the third building.
There we go.
I didn't do a great job of that.
I found
You found your way.
I did, and but so when you became so you guys built it out, got it all set up. Doc was owning the gym. When did that transfer of ownership go from Doc to you?
It's a great question. Can we take a break and I'll use the restroom and come back?
Yeah,
and answer?
yeah. We could pause it because I was thinking the same thing. Dude, this is great, man.
I'm having a great time.
Yeah, me too. I'll just cut this.
This is the bathroom?
No, upstairs and right around the corner.
Awesome. You got 3 doors down here.
Yeah. That's a bedroom, and then the other one's a cellar.